From our Westminster studios, Sir Bernard Jenkin, Conservative MP and member of the European Research Group. Good morning, Sir Bernard.
Good morning.
Would you be able to support a deal that came back to the Commons based on what the government's now put forward to the EU?
Well, I think this is all much more positive. I'm quite optimistic that if the EU were to agree these backstop proposals, it sounds like the DUP would support them, and that would change the whole chemistry of the way the Conservative Party thinks about this. And also, do not underestimate how important the renegotiation of the political declaration is. The EU has already indicated it's prepared to renegotiate that, and to point very clearly towards full independence for the UK from the EU.
Is that a yes to my question?
Well, I'm going to qualify that, obviously, because we haven't seen any of the small print. And that, as has been pointed out, we have regularly pointed out some very serious problems in the EU withdrawal agreement as negotiated by Theresa May, which don't appear to be addressed at the moment.
Which ones?
Well, for example, in the transition period, the EU has absolute control over all the laws that it currently controls. So we're not taking back control of our laws, that the EU retains the ability to make new laws which would apply in the United Kingdom and be applied by our own courts with direct applicability and direct effect. And we wouldn't even be sitting at the table when those new laws are decided. There's a joint committee between the EU and the UK that decides matters to be agreed or to disagreements, and their decisions are binding. And there's of course, the money. We talk about 39 billion, but actually the figure 39 billion doesn't appear in the withdrawal agreement at all. It is a formula that will be interpreted by, yes, you've guessed it, ultimately by the European Court of Justice. And there are a whole lot of long tails on stuff. So, we swallowed and swallowed and swallowed as that agreement emerged, but the straw that broke the camel's back was the political declaration and the nature of the backstop, the open-ended nature of the backstop.
And I know you had a meeting in Downing Street last night, didn't you?
Yeah, as few of us went into Downing Street yesterday.
And how were these other issues addressed?
Well, there is a very solid understanding in Downing Street about how draconian the withdrawal agreement is. And I think if the government could address them, but we are where we are. Look, there is, as Monsieur Barnier has been wont to say many times, the clock has been ticking and much time has been wasted, and there is now very little time. We may have to accept a compromise, and I think compromise is in the air. The question is whether the EU can compromise.
Okay, well, let's just assume that there is a deal on the basis of what we have, and these changes are focused on the Northern Ireland Protocol.
And the political declaration, don't underestimate that.
Okay. So if it comes back with, for example, this part of this new Northern Ireland protocol, I mean, that is a big if, because the EU has previously, the backstop was different, and that's what the EU has been focused on. And if there is a rewriting of the political declaration, but there is still a continuing role for the ECJ in the transition period, and there is still a divorce bill, would you be able to support that in the House of Commons?
Well, without having seen the small print, and you'll understand I attach that caveat, I have an open mind, and I'm not going to guarantee. I think a lot of my colleagues in the ERG are looking at this very realistically.
Because
and we
Michael Gove is saying there's now he thinks there's a solid majority in support of this in the House of Commons, and a lot of that would be predicated on people who believe as you do and members of the European Research Group. Are they wrong to assume that at this stage?
Well, I don't think you can guarantee people are going to agree to something before they've actually seen the detail. But I fully accept that he is entitled to far more optimism than existed before. We've been properly engaged in the discussions, as has the DUP. I mean, months went by under Theresa May without the DUP being properly engaged. And there is a mood for compromise. People want to get this done. And there is considerably more trust in the final outcome of Brexit because Boris is committed to a free trade agreement at the end of it. So I would say there's very strong grounds for optimism. The question is whether the EU is going to be prepared to compromise, because if they won't compromise, then we will leave anyway on the 31st of October. I have no doubt about that.
Despite the new law?
Well, I don't. We did not discuss the new law with the government. They have their views about it, and they are confident that they can leave on the 31st of October, come what may.
Sir Bernard Jenkin,
thank you very much.